All right, everybody, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're joining us from. It's an exciting day here with Second Season Health.
We're going to talk about GLP-1s. It's a
Wildly
hot
popular
button,
topic.
Oh my
hot
gosh, it's
topic.
everywhere right now, right? We're going to talk a little bit into GLP-1s, the pros, the cons. Have either of you had any experience of GLP-1s personally?
Yeah.
Again,
I
who's
think
the
I've even
expert?
mentioned it on another episode, but yes, I have been on ZepBound, which is the trizepatide, for about 10 months at this point in time. I have learned quite a lot. I have worked with clients who've been on different types of the medication. I've worked with people who are getting it from compounding pharmacies. So we're going to get into that at some point today. I have friends with all different types of experiences as well.
Yeah, we want to get into what are GLP-1s, how do they work, who do they help, risk versus benefit, where do you get them, how to measure what you're losing, what kind of diet to support it. So GLP-1s is just the umbrella term that they use, but it's an injectable or oral medication that mimics your body's incretin hormone, GLP-1. What these do is they slow your stomach emptying out. They promote satiety. They are an appetite suppressant that can really help with folks that have food noise, they call it, where they are constantly grazing through the day. And it helps your insulin if you're insulin resistant, something a lot of us struggle with approaching menopause. So it helps with getting your insulin a little bit more sensitive and balancing that blood sugar, promoting metabolic improvements, weight loss. However, there's a lot of caution that we want to talk about here. There's certain people that it works best for. It's when you've tried everything, you are working out, you're eating right, and it's just not budging. That would be probably an insulin problem, something that you might benefit from. People that have type 2 diabetes, high triglycerides, high blood pressure, sleep apnea, weight-related comorbidities, when you have a substantial amount of weight that you'd like to lose. This is not something that Hollywood is, I need 5 to 10 vanity pounds, I'm going to take the shot. That's utterly foolish, in my opinion. It's definitely for folks that have some major metabolic issues that they're dealing with.
I think that it's important for us to say today's conversation really is for educational purposes. It's not medical advice. We're going to be discussing GLP medications, the benefits, the concerns, the side effects, lifestyle considerations, and also personal and professional observations. Remembering that GLP-1 medications are prescription drugs and obviously should be started, stopped, and adjusted or managed under the care of a qualified medical provider. Now, everybody's health history, medications, hormones, digestion, etc., are all unique to you as a person, and what may be appropriate for one may not be appropriate for everybody else. So our goal today is not to shame anyone for using these medications, but it's not also promoting a quick fix. Our goal here is to have an open and balanced conversation about the bigger picture so that you can go into speaking with your medical provider and having an open conversation.
I love that. Absolutely. And I love you touched on a couple of things about working with a medical provider. I would like to point out that your person who does your Botox is not a medical provider. I think that it's sort of become the Wild West out there in terms of how you can get these GLP-1s. There are companies like Roe, like MIDI Health, all these online companies that actually have some doctors working with them, but it's all online, right? You're never actually seeing somebody in person. These people could be anywhere on the planet necessarily, like helping you. And then there are med spas all around the world, at least in the United States currently, that are distributing these medications. They're getting them from compounding pharmacies. You don't necessarily know what all it's being compounded with. It's very unregulated and, in my opinion, pretty unsafe. Some people are having a lot of weight loss with that. But what I still recommend to all my clients, the way that I do it is going through my primary care physician, through the pharmaceutical company itself, getting the medication straight from the actual source so that it's 100% quality control that way.
Well, you bring up a really important point, something I never knew about. And I'm sure a lot of folks out there don't know about it, but there are those pop-up places that do discount injections. And that means they're using a product that's probably cut with or mixed with other adjuvants, and you really don't know what is in there. There have been a few public health articles written about that there is a higher risk of side effects and adverse events, obviously, when you're using something like that. You don't want to mess around with this. This is definitely a very powerful drug, and there's a lot of things to consider. Some of the functional mitigation strategies that we've looked into, and Brittany can expound on that for sure, is to start low and slow with GI-friendly meals. Always remember hydration and electrolytes, maybe ginger and peppermint if your stomach is upset, protein and strength training. You really want to preserve your muscle and bone, and eat even if you're not hungry, because that's one of the things that can happen with a lot of folks, is that you're getting nutritional deficiencies now. It's starting to pull these nutrients from your tissues and bone. So bone loss can be a common side effect. There is a right way to do it, and all things considered with your bio-individuality. What has been your experience, Brittany, as far as side effects go? Have you had any adverse things happen?
Oh, I have had, I think, every side effect that comes with them.
Really?
I've had the nausea, the vomiting, the heartburn, constipation, which I've never experienced that in my life. That is horrible. I've always been a very regular person, and I'm not a fan of that at all. So I have found ways to keep things moving, which I think is extremely important, because you've heard of people ending up in the hospital with their digestion is basically just stopped. So keeping up with, I've brought in like papaya enzymes, different types of digestive enzymes. I've kept up with maintaining different probiotics and just keeping things moving as I need to. Magnesium, of course, is always my go-to. So yeah, absolutely. And then even for a period of time, as much as how horrible I know heartburn medications are for you, I have actually even done some of that, knowing it was only going to be for a short period of time, not something I ever want to be on forever. Even with ZepBound, I'm not somebody who wants to necessarily be on it forever. Although there are more and more studies coming out about all the positive side effects outside of just weight loss. But I think I went into this with a plan, knowing I was going to give myself a timeline. I had specific goals, and I continue to measure using an InBody machine. So there's a DEXA scan. Most people have heard of a DEXA scan. I just have access to an InBody machine, which is basically using electrons to measure your body mass. So it's breaking down what's water, what's fat, what's bone, what's muscle. So I have consistently been doing that to ensure that I'm still gaining muscle, still maintaining my bone mass, and losing fat, which is what, of course, you want to lose. And the water, what's interesting about the InBody machine, it gives an intracellular and an extracellular water, which is actually a measure of inflammation in the body. So I can see that my inflammation's coming down. Of course, I can see it like in my face, because my face used to be very puffy, full of inflammation, and I could feel it in all my joints and everything. So I have been using that to make sure that I am losing the right things. I have known people who have lost 60, 70 pounds, but a lot of that was muscle and bone. And when you lose it in a fast period of time, like most people are losing their weight in 6 months to a year, losing that amount of weight in that time frame, when you haven't brought in working out, weightlifting, strength training, that's when you start to lose those things too. And you, Susan, you pointed out a great thing too when you were talking about nutrients. So what also happens is that a lot of people who take these, they stop that food noise, they're just not hungry. They don't even think about food anymore. They're not worried about their next meal or what they're going to eat later. The more I fast, the more I stop eating, the more weight I'm going to lose. So a lot of people are going about this the wrong way, is what I'm trying to say. They're fasting, or they're not going to eat anything. Then for dinner, I'm just going to have French fries because that's what I want. And then that'll be it. And guess what? Today I only had 500 calories of French fries, and that was it. So I know a lot of people who are going about it that way, and maybe they'll lose weight. But like we said, you're not getting in nutrients. Your body will start stealing the nutrients from the sources that it already has, which is your bones, your muscle.
That's really important as well as we're aging, right? Because those are the things that we're starting to lose. So our muscle mass and our bone density. One of the things with regards to that scan, Brittany, I believe that a lot of gyms actually have those now in there. Everybody was about their fat, and they'd hold or stand on the scales and it would do it. But now they've become a lot more advanced, so they can kind of literally break it down. I mean, I've even stood on one and I had my right hip replaced, and it can even show the slight less in muscle on my right side compared to my left side.
So the InBody, the InBody scan does that. It compares your right arm to your left arm, your right leg to your left leg. So I'm reviewing clients InBody scans. I actually had a girl who had a brain tumor and had lost all feeling in her left leg. She has function, but it's like numb. It's numb.
Wow.
But so I said, wow, your left side is 3 or 4 pounds smaller than your right side, which is a big difference. Normally you see like ounces difference, but pounds is a big deal. And she was like, well, that makes sense because this is what happened to me. I've had somebody with a hip replacement, and that hardware is going to be heavier.
Yeah.
So yeah, it is very interesting.
So where are these types of instruments? Like they're available at gyms? Where do you find
yeah,
them?
mine, the InBody machine, my gym owns it. I would say that piece of equipment though is like $10,000. So
Wow.
it's not something most people are going to just buy and have at home. So finding somewhere that offers that. The DEXA scan is interesting because at least where I live, there are people who own that equipment and they go around and they'll say like, we're going to post up at Hotworks. And if you come on this day, you can pay money and have a DEXA scan done. Or they'll have them in like a clinic type setting where they just do the DEXA scans. Find somebody in your area where you can do this so that you can monitor what you are losing.
Just for the folks out there that may not know what this is, a DEXA scan uses low-dose x-rays to precisely separate your body into 3 parts, bone, fat, and lean muscle, and it's considered the clinical gold standard for accuracy. A BIA is a bioelectrical impedance analysis, and that's the technology used in smart scales. So it sends tiny electric currents through you to estimate your fat versus water. So it's giving you extra information at home, but it's not as precise or specific as the DEXA scan.
And also to talk a little bit onto that as well, I know that there are products like scales now that you can buy and you pull something up and you hold it and it does something similar. Just remember, this is a tool. Right. So we also don't want to drive ourselves crazy when we're looking at this thing and then we're like, oh my gosh, now I've got to go to the gym and just work my right arm. Right. It's like, just kind of keeping things into perspective. But the human body is not necessarily symmetrical. If you're right hand dominant, you might have a right strong bicep and a left tricep strong. Just remembering that we are not always symmetrical and we don't necessarily need to be symmetrical. Right. The other thing about this as well, people say that it takes away their feeling of joy, right, as much as anything as well. And some people experience not just not ever wanting to eat as much that we've spoken about, where you still need to make sure you're eating things even if you're not hungry, but does it take away that enjoyment of other things? Have you noticed that, Brittany?
I personally haven't noticed that. If anything, my husband has said I'm in a much better mood than I used to be in. I do understand the concept behind it. I have a friend who's been on it longer than I have, and she says that she just kind of doesn't care about a lot of things. And at the same time, both of us are going through perimenopause. So I think we've talked about this, as your estrogen drops, so does your GIVA. Everything drops too. So I'm kind of like, which one is it? Is it both? But I haven't personally experienced that.
Well, and I think because you're doing a lot of things that a lot of people don't consider. You're keeping up with the nutrition, you know about the different nutrients that can be depleted because you're just not eating. Iron, B12, calcium, vitamin D, magnesium. Stress can leach these things as well. So if people are doing that kind of French fry diet now and still losing weight, makes total sense that those important nutrients that feed joy and care and the brain, all these feel good things, you're just not getting those things anymore. So there are things that we can do to support. And as Brittany was talking into, prioritizing protein is huge. You really want to focus on getting plant fibers. So, lots of vegetables, fruits, quality carbs, healthy fats, maybe supplement with different things. We all love our supplements here in this world, but also the resistance training and the sleep. And you specifically mentioned those 2 things, Britt. I know they're really important to you and you have prioritized those, which is awesome. It's really wonderful that you have firsthand experience with this. That resistance training, can you talk more into some of the things you do?
Yeah,
to help
absolutely.
with that.
Yep. And I know Sarah can talk into this too as a certified personal trainer, but I'm actually working at a gym. So even when I'm not working out, I'm moving my body a lot. I'm lifting a lot of heavy weights. I'm picking up 50-pound weights off the ground, putting them on a shelf. I'm carrying a lot of extra weight on purpose. So I look at all those little exercise snacks as something everyone can do at home too. So even if you don't know how to strength train, even if you don't know what to do, even just picking up your weights, get some weights, get heavy weights. You need more than 5 pounds. Get heavier weights and just pick them up and move them around, do something every day. But the strength training to me is so important. Lifting heavy weights is so important because it also helps build up your bone strength too.
Right.
So
that is a big side effect too, where, a lot of people are experiencing bone loss, and young people,
Right.
so that's definitely something I don't think a lot of people realize that just lifting heavy things is what keeps your bones strong.
Exactly.
It's kind of,
Exactly. Yeah, I think the osteoporosis epidemic is going to be huge in a couple of years.
Yeah. Why these can help is that they counter increased appetite cravings and central fat gain, which is huge for us ladies approaching menopause and in menopause. It improves insulin sensitivity and metabolic risk markers that are often worsen in midlife. So those are some really great upsides, and improving our insulin sensitivity is key. And you were talking into some of the exciting things that they're finding in these studies, Britt. What was it, like a decrease in cancer risk or cancer occurrence?
So yes, they're doing studies. A couple of studies have come out where they're finding that it's slowing the spread of cancer. Certain cancers, there's actually up to 7 cancers that it's showing positive effects on, and slowing growth of tumors, which we all know tumors are fed by sugar and insulin. Mm-hmm. So when you're correcting your insulin and lowering all your blood sugar, it's having a huge impact on cancer.
That's awesome. We always recommend that you consider your bioindividuality. Always speak with a medical professional on this stuff, but you want to work with a menopause informed clinician for sure. You can track your waist circumference, body comp, and metabolic labs, not just scale weight. So lots of ways that you can keep track on this. Brittany, how has it worked for you? How long has it been? What have your gains and losses been?
Yeah. And I know I talked about this on another episode here, but for me, I had extreme estrogen dominance that I could not get control of. And in the first 6 months of being on the medication, my estrogen actually finally dropped from being in the 300s down to like the 50s, 60s, like a normal range, which for me was like I wanted to cry when I got my labs back. But I could feel it. I could feel that my estrogen is actually lower. It was lower than where it was supposed to be. And I talked all into that and the side effects of having high estrogen on another episode. But so insulin is a hormone. So when you do something to one hormone, they all start to level out. They all affect each other. So that's why I specifically went with the trizepatide, because it had proven to actually help balance hormones, and it was showing improvements with people with high estrogen. I worked a lot with my doctor before ever even considering taking it. And in the 11 months that I've been on it, I've lost about 30 pounds. And like I said, I have not lost any bone or muscle. If anything, I've actually gained 2 pounds of muscle. And so I've lost pure fat according to what I'm using to track. And inflammation, of course. I know I've lost inflammation. I can tell I'm just not as swollen as I used to be.
Wow.
I think
that's awesome.
well, really, and that's great. But one of the other things as well, when we're talking about weight loss, is the body puts on weight, obviously, to protect ourselves. And so sometimes when we start releasing some of that body fat or that adipose tissue, sometimes that's where those toxins are stored. So equally, it's really important for us to be supporting the natural detoxification pathways, making sure that we are drinking plenty of water, we are eating plenty of fruit and fiber, and that we are having regular bowel movements, because these are really key. And just also want to go back as well with regards to exercise. Adding heavy weights is important, but also reminding you, like if you're carrying around on a day-to-day basis what you consider to be extra 50 pounds, just doing body weight exercises is a good place to start. And remembering that lifting heavy can ultimately be our goal, but as you start losing that 10 pounds, maybe you could now move to your 10-pound dumbbells, or as you move just starting somewhere, thinking that, oh, I've got to just go and lift heavy, but I've got so many aches and pains and my knees hurt, my back hurts.
Right.
What am I going to do? Remembering starting somewhere, whether that is just getting a weighted vest or getting, as I would say, a rucksack, you guys might say backpack, just putting a bag of sugar in the bag, or a 5-pound dumbbell and just walking around your house doing your housework, or going for a walk with the dog. It can be real simple things, even standing against a wall, doing just a basic push-up, sitting on a chair, standing up, just using your body weight as a benefit, even though we're trying to lose that weight. Okay.
Yeah.
And Brittany, I'm kind of pulling back to you again, but what are the ways for people to really support their detoxification pathways? Is there anything that perhaps you would recommend, or anything to focus on to support that as we're releasing the extra toxins?
Yeah. So two things that I have done personally, I know you both are well versed in the world of binders. I have done binders on and off. And then the other thing that I've done is I've started to grow my own broccoli sprouts, and I'm incorporating broccoli sprouts into my food, into my eggs, into my salads. Broccoli sprouts are so powerful. They're chock full of sulforaphane, but they really help your body clear excess estrogen. I mean, they do a million things. Bringing in those cruciferous vegetables is really important.
Yeah,
That's awesome.
And there's these little kits now that you can get, like the little jar. You've got the kit, so the jar, and they just keep growing, and you don't have to be a green-fingered goddess in the garden, right?
Yes.
And then with regards to the binders, why is that important?
As you mentioned, your fat cells hold toxins. So if you're reading a food label, you don't know the word, you can't pronounce the word, your body likely can't process it. So what does it do? It stores it away in those little fat cells. All the little toxins get stuffed into your fat cells. That's why eating a really high processed diet, you end up with more fat, right? Mm-hmm. It all makes sense. So as your body is releasing those fat cells, or they're getting smaller and getting released into your body, they're releasing those toxins back into your system. So the binders come in like little garbage men and bind up those toxins, and then they excrete them out through going to the restroom. Yeah.
Well, I asked you that question, even though I know the answer. But the other thing as well is not all binders are created equal. So quite often some of them are charcoal based. And if we have somebody that is already struggling with constipation, something like charcoal can actually make things worse. So there are different binders that are out there that can help with detox, or they'll perhaps say that they are detox binder. There are many, many different brands out there. Obviously, again, as with the GLPs, remember to do your own research. You don't have to become Dr. Google, but you can empower yourself with knowledge. Listen to shows like ours where you can listen to other people's perspectives, but then take from us what feels aligned with you and turn it into your own. We all work here virtually. We have all our own practices, so we can come in and support every one of you if that feels something that feels aligned with you. Sometimes we might need to actually visit somebody and actually get some full medical advice before we go down that GLP route.
So I think the best way that I've heard doctors talk about the GLP-1s is that look at it as this is your chance to give yourself a mental break. This is your chance to stop the cravings, to stop all your bad habits around food, around alcohol. And we didn't even get into how the GLP-1s can help fill your dopamine centers, so people are able to drink less and stop some of their bad habits. But look at this as your chance to start working out, to start eating healthy. You're not hungry, but you know you need to eat protein. So grab protein first, something that has got some healthy fat and some protein in it. This is your chance to give yourself more or less like a mental break to start actually building some good habits.
Yeah, I think it's not a magic wand. And I think this is what we've
right. It's not. It's not at all.
It can be a magic start. To think about, okay, the noise is gone. It's kind of quieting that so that now you can just totally focus on you. And then don't see it as, okay, I'm going to do this for 6 months, but I'm not going to change anything else about my life. I'm still going to go eating French fries for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And I'm going to sit on the couch with my
and doom scroll
on. Right. Yes. And doom scroll and look in the mirror at myself and say awful things to myself. Remember, the body is always listening. And it can be turned into a very powerful thing if we choose to let it go that way.
Something I wanted to add in is the functional checklist that you can incorporate if you're considering a GLP-1. You want to, as Brittany said, clarify your goals beyond pounds. Are you doing this to get better energy? Are you doing this to help clean up bad habits, improve your labs, better mobility, better sleep? Get a baseline of your body comp. So you want to look at that DEXA scan that Brittany mentioned, your waist circumference, strength, metabolic, and nutritional labs. You want to start low and slow. So manage your GI side effects accordingly, prioritize going to the bathroom, getting to poop every day is
Yes.
priority number one
Yes.
for sure.
And hydration, hydration.
Yes. Hit your protein targets if you can. Prioritize sleep and stress, all of the foundations we always talk about. Maybe reassess your body comp or labs every 3 to 6 months to have a good pulse on that. And understand, as Sarah mentions, and I love that she always mentions this, just your body is the bottom line. So always, always listen to your body. And if it's too much, pull back. If you feel you can do it, go for it. But your body is the final authority on all of that. This has been really enlightening for me because I have friends on it, and I'm always so curious as to their experience. And I think this is important information that folks need to know for sure.
Now, you know, and adding on to your list there, I think the other thing I would say, and I would say this from my experience of even just myself and working with clients, is sometimes we think we're doing really well with our protein intake and our water intake. It's not until we actually sit down and monitor, and I'm not talking about, you don't have to start weighing and measuring, but just using something like, there's so many different apps out there that you could just use one of those free apps and add in what you're actually eating so that you can really understand, have I actually got my ideal protein intake in my day? And, a lot of these tools that are available, they'll ask you what your goal is, how sedentary or how active you are, and then it will give you an ideal amount for what protein, fat, fiber intake you should be having. So there's lots of them out there. There's no one golden one out there, right? Just depends what feels good for you. Some people do better having a little bit more carbohydrate. Some people do better with a little bit more fat. So again, just because it says this is the way, it doesn't always have to be that. Hone back in on your body.
I love that. I do think, I tell people all the time, even if you don't want to track every day, track for 2 days or 3 days and just see how much protein are you actually getting in on a normal basis. How much fiber are you consuming? That's normally so eye-opening. And really pay attention to your water. Just kind of jot them down. Even if you just have to Google, okay, I ate chicken. How much protein is that? I ate this, whatever. Just kind of write it down to get a baseline of, are you anywhere near what those targets are? Because most of the time you're not.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say too, just in my own personal experience, my weight loss has been slow. It has been 2 pounds. And then I get stuck at that weight for a long time. I'll stay that weight. And then I'll lose another 2 pounds. And then I'm stuck at that weight. So don't think that just because you're not losing weight, it's not working. A lot of times when you're doing things the right way, when you are focused on your diet, when you are working out, when you are being patient and consistent and doing things the right way, it's slower. And my personal opinion is that you want your weight loss to be slow. You don't want it to be drastic. Because drastic is when you're probably losing the wrong things.
Yes, I think that slow and steady, as they say, wins the race.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a joy, a pleasure. And until our next conversation, we are Second Season Health. And don't forget to like, share, and comment below, because we'd love to see any kind of comments. Know that we are here for you. We're sending you lots of love, lots of light, and good health.
Bye.